I've originally brought it up, and I can apologize if you felt like I mischaracterized conservatives. The point that I was trying to originally make is that I think part of the reason why conservative talking points on transgender issues oftentimes make their way to the issue of trans women in sports is that I think that that argument, even though I disagree with it, is frankly a lot better than a lot of the other arguments or typical points that get bandied about by conservatives. And I think that if you look at those points, you can make a fair enough assessment that not only are a decent number of these, shall we say, transphobic, and we could say that not all conservatives are transphobic, certainly not all of them want suicide, that a lot of these arguments are probably going to lead to a world where there's probably more trans suicide. When we talk about like dead naming people or giving them health care, these are a lot harder arguments for conservatives to win because there's a lot more empirical data where it says these things help save people, trans people, from committing suicide. And that's not necessarily the case with trans sports. That's all.
Rather than like hyper fixating on trying to figure out like what the motivation is for an argument or something, why not just like dismantle the actual argument? And then if you think that somebody's being transphobic, like call out the transphobic. Like,
move the topic.
It's because we were
talking about. We're literally having a discussion here, and your one response is, "How about you guys just dismantle the argument?" Like, do you realize how weirdly reactionary?
Because the second I came in, you guys are saying shit like conservatives want trans people to kill themselves, and then you guys got into like this weird side.
Okay. Let me walk you through my line of logic here. Is there going to be a predominance on which side of the political aisle for people who want trans people or are more in favor or more likely to be transphobic and more likely lead to these consequences? And if so, which side is it?
Who cares?
Come on, answer the question. Answer the question, Steve.
Well, it's probably going to be conservatives are more likely to be anti-trans, but what does that have to do?
There he is. He said it. He got it out.
Wait, what? Wait,
who's more likely to make the arguments? Who's more likely to make the arguments on behalf of trans suicidality? Who's more likely to crack the 43% jokes?
I don't even know it, but my guess would probably be conservatives.
Yeah, you do know. We can list numerous examples.
What is the point of this conversation?
Yeah, what's the point? Yeah, of course, I know this. Like, who's more likely to, say that, there's a million things that we could characterize from either political side. I don't know how that gets us any further in the conversation topic.
And then you come in with this weird, dumb, contrarian take of just dismantle the argument, guys. Like, we're doing that. We're talking about the issue. It's all encompassing.
We're not really talking about the issue.
Not all. I don't think it's crazy to say
you're trying to hand wave what could be like legitimate criticism over a topic by just screaming transphobe to everybody.
No, nobody's done that.
This all seems like a response to Destiny's shitty Twitter post earlier today, so we could talk about that too, which is basically this.
I mean, every Twitter post was
specifically Destiny.
Your shitty Twitter post today.
Hold on, no, this is really important context. We had been having a discussion. We were about to move the discussion. PrimeCayes wanted to stay on the general discussion, but he specifically wanted to talk about why this discussion was so pervasive. So we were giving reasons why it was culturally pervasive. That's why we were talking about people's attitudes towards the topic. It was incredibly relevant to the conversation we were having. Coming in and saying, this massive straw man that all conservatives want blah, blah, blah. No, we were just saying that there are conservatives who are transphobic, and this is a problem.
Okay.
No, but you would.
Argumentation leads to more.
If that only what was said, that would be great, but that wasn't the case at all. Instead, what we heard was that this absurd caricature that conservatives, there was no qualification, conservatives want to see more trans suicides or root for more trans people to commit suicide. It's an absurd caricature, and you guys focusing on this
there are absolutely these people. Have you never seen trans harassment in the real world? What are you talking about?
There's women harassment, there's male harassment, there's harassment everywhere.
I must be meeting a caricature every day.
Do you not think harassment's a problem? I agree, but do you don't think that
caricature conservatives the way that Flo did?
But there are conservatives who are harassing trans people by telling them to kill themselves, by circle jerking their transphobic friends, by saying, "I hope they all fucking kill themselves." This is a self-solving problem, right? How often do you hear that? It's a self-solving problem.
So even if we don't apply intent, right? Like, which party is putting policies that will emotionally and economically and maybe even physically damage trans individuals? Like, which side of the aisle is actually putting that forward?
Right now, it seems like both of them kind of are. I think that the trans
Steven,
athlete
fuck
stuff.
off.
I think the trans athlete shit is going to do a lot to like foster a lot of really bad will against like trans people in general. I think it's a really good turf argument for, well, look, these people just want to destroy women's spaces. Because for the athletic arguments, it's kind of true. So I think in that sense, I think it's a pretty harmful thing.
But that's not directly meant to hurt trans people.
It's Dr. K.
meant to be the exact opposite.
Dr. K, hold on, Dr. K. Dr. K, go ahead, please. I want to hear what you have to say.
All right. Yeah, like that. The stuff about the trans people in sports, like any bill, there's not a single Democrat bill that is maliciously built with the intent to hurt trans people, right? Whereas across this country, in Florida, in Texas, in so many states, there's stuff meant explicitly to make the life and existence of being trans harder. This is not.
Sure, and that's bad.
This isn't hard.
But the drive for more inclusiveness for trans people in women's sports is all coming from the left.
But it's not. It's not being driven by malicious. Even if
it doesn't matter if it's being driven. Hold on, it doesn't matter if it's being driven by malice.
Can I please talk? It's my turn to talk, Stephen. Thank you. So one, it's not being driven by maliciousness, right? One, which is what we're talking about, and two, right, is that it's like. It's even accepting that it is meant to hurt them, right? Stephen, come on, Stephen.
Okay, whether or not something is driven by malice is not relevant. That's like a first grader's analysis of like legislation. That's like saying if we look at voter ID laws.
That's what we're talking about.
So it's not malicious.
Okay, that's what we're talking about. Is if one party is actively transphobic, and it is.
Yeah, I got a question for you. How would you feel if we were like 80 years ago and you made this argument about like Jesse Owen, okay? Black people are just stronger than white people. It wouldn't be fair if Jesse Owen competed in the Olympics. I mean, come on.
I don't know if there's evidence that black people are just stronger. Do you think that the differences between black and white people are as pronounced as the differences between women and men?
Come on. They've made
the argument isn't
like
about
that.
women
The
and
same
men, right?
arguments that are being made
the
towards
argument
trans
is
people
about
were
women
made
and women.
towards black people long ago.
Okay, and the same arguments about the Earth being flat were made about the Earth being round. That doesn't mean that both are wrong. Like, there are differences between men and women. That doesn't mean that there had to have been differences between black people and white people. Do you think that 100 years from now, we're all going to be enlightened and we're going to realize that men and women are the same?
But they're on average taller? Like, come on. African-American individuals are on average taller than white males.
If you're going to compare African-American, you're probably going to go to different ethnicities, and then you're going to compare them with different ethnicities of white people, right? Because the tallest people in the world, I'm pretty sure, are people from the Netherlands who are white. So that doesn't even make sense as an argument.
I know African-Americans, and we're talking about an American-centric issue here. So, you know. Why should we let Jesse Owens compete?
Sports aren't limited to.
Do you understand how deranged you guys sound when you do it? Everybody else in the world can look and see that there is clearly a difference between physiologically men and women. You guys should know this on the left because you talk about rape culture in general all the time, and it's one of the big concerns that women has. But then as soon as like trans athletes come up, you lose your fucking mind.
Nobody's disagreed with that claim. What are you talking about?
Then why are you comparing black people and white people and saying that's the same as comparing women and men?
Keep getting introduced, Destiny. Everybody's agreeing that there's a difference, like generally speaking, between men and women on the physical side.
Yeah, I just take an issue with the weird contrarian arguments here.
What argument is contrarian?
Applied 80 years ago to Jesse Owens.
It was a side tangent.
I don't understand why you think that. Yeah, I don't know the black. Like that would have been a bad argument then. But if somebody wanted to say back then black and white people might be susceptible to different types of diseases based on genetics, I mean that would have been true. I guess if we talk about like sickle cell anemia or something.
It's fine. Prime, recenter us, please.
Yeah.
One party is notably transphobic, and I think that that's inarguable.
What's transphobic?
Well, y'all are expanding like what. Y'all are like drastically expanding what was said. What was said was that a typical argument from conservatives is that trans people want to kill themselves, and that was what the issue with. But then to back that up, you all changed it to, well, which party is more against trans people? Which party is passing bills? And that wasn't the part. That wasn't the issue of the statement that was made. The statement was that a typical argument by from conservatives is that trans people want to kill themselves. And I think that's the part that's ridiculous.
Who said it was a typical argument? Nobody said it was a typical argument.
Yes, that's exactly what Fotre said.
No, there's just an enormous.
Did you ever say the words typical argument?
I don't think.
Or did you just say that conservatives would do this, right?
I think I can just clarify to you, Vanilla T. the argument I was just trying to make was that I think that the reason why conservatives tend to go to trans people in sports is because that argument is a lot stronger than their other arguments, which oftentimes have implications on the suicide of trans people, and that can be something that's very difficult for
that's not what you said the first
because
time.
well then I misspoke, and I legitimately apologize, and I'm trying to clarify this right now. It's legitimately hard for me to talk, and it's a big panel. So that's the argument I'm trying to make, is that other conservative arguments have a lot bigger implication in terms of the suicide rate of trans people compared to the trans people in sports argument, and that is one reason why I think they go to that argument more, because frankly it is a stronger argument for them to make. The reason we were talking about why people make the arguments as opposed to the arguments themselves, I think if we're being honest, is because we all agreed with each other, because we were all lefties and we were just looping.
Yes.
Okay,
Destiny,
so
are you caught up now?
Yeah.
So
I don't think I just don't think it's unfair to call out. Like it seems weird that we wouldn't call out the other party for that behavior. I mean, we don't have to focus on that, but like it's when we see others like basing their political platform, right? Like fucking Abbott, right, in Texas, as Dr. K was trying to get to previously, right? Like thinking that he's going to save himself. By showing his conservative bona fides. How does he plan on doing that? He plans on hurting trans kids. That's what he does. Right? Like this appeals
for the base.
to the base, right? Like it's just a thing. So we can pretend that's not the case, right? It seems like it gets some people butt hurt when you like mention like the obvious fact, but it is what it is. But beyond that, we can.
I think it hurts your side when people jump to like labeling like transphobe and like we're so past like people on the left just using like racist, Nazi, fascist, transphobe, homophobic like for every single thing, that I think it's better to just like take apart like when people say shitty or bad things, just address that.
Okay,
I think the Conservative Party is transphobic.
No. Do you think that like when you address the arguments that a conservative has, that understanding the motivations for why they're making those arguments is ever important for doing that?
Yeah, but I don't think very few of you understand the motivation. Like, here's a question.
Well, you don't understand what was going on the panel.
Literally the question.
Sure, let me ask a question.
The question for the panel was why they feel that way.
Yeah, do you guys think the vast majority of conservatives like actually hate trans people, like want them to go away because of some amount of malice or whatever?
In an explicit way, no.
No. You guys just implicitly yes. Implicitly yes. Explicitly no. And you can see that in the otherization that they purvey upon trans people in society. Which party is more prone to other trans people in society?
More prone to?
What does that even mean?
Well, yeah, what does he mean by that?
We all kind of know what he means. Like he means like
don't know what he means.
So we know conservatives or Republicans or whatever are more prone in their rhetoric to direct malice or anger or frustration or blame societal issues on trans people.
Anger.
Oh yeah, probably yeah.
100%.
It just seems like
it's an easy no-brainer. Yes, of course, the conservatives or Republican Party are going to be the ones that tend to be much more transphobic. And yeah, you know what? Some of them say some pretty fucking heinous shit. I don't know that all of them do, but I've heard them say some fucking horrible, horrendous ass shit to trans people.
To answer your question, Destiny, you're saying do most conservatives feel this way? Well, I'm not exactly sure what they feel. I know how they vote. I know what arguments seem to appeal to them. Right? I know what their politicians seem to think appeals to them because they keep hitting these same points over and over again, right? They keep using this the same, and they're not like these politicians aren't punished. It's not like the voters are going, "Hey, now," right? Republican voters going, "Hey, knock it off with the trans stuff," right? We don't want to hear any of that. Let's get back to the economic issues that are actually affecting our lives. That doesn't happen, right? So I have no idea what's going on in the minds of individual conservatives, but I can see the end result. And if you're saying, take the time and demolish argument, well, we can do that, and we can try to do that again. But the problem is, as you understand, if there's a bad faith actor who just doesn't like a group, well, then your arguments are going to fall on deaf ears, right? So I think it's just...
Prime, why would you bring us to a conversation about the motivations if you don't care about the motivations and only care about the consequences?
Are you seriously asking me?
Well, I think he just said it.
Yeah,
I think he just did it, which was This sounds like circular reasoning here. So, Prime, just a minute ago, you attempted to presume what Abbott's motivations were for this current trans law down in Texas, that he's trying to demonstrate or reveal his bona fides to conservatives, that he's trying to save his political ass by engaging in this kind of policy making. And yet what you just did was imputed a bad faith to him. And then you'll say, well, he's a bad faith actor, so we have to look at motivations, because if we have a bad faith actor, then whatever argument they might present is illegitimate.
I'm sorry. Did you think that's what I said? Was it phenomics? Yeah. What was your point?
Okay,
I didn't understand what you're trying to say.
I understand.
Brian
asked about motivations, even though he didn't really care about them. Maybe he was just interested in what we wanted to talk about.
Did I say that I didn't care about motivations? I said I didn't know what their motivations were. Phenomics, what did you ask me? I didn't realize that was a serious question.
No, from what you were talking about, you made it sound like you don't care about their motivations. It sounded like you were responding by saying, even if their motivations aren't to be bad to trans people, their actions are bad to trans people. But I think that the better argument that we should be talking about is that the implicit bias that suggests, not the consequences are bad, when that doesn't really have obviously that's a reason to care about the motivations, but you never brought it back to the reason about the motivations. It felt more like you were trying to deflect so you didn't have to defend the motivations, which you're probably not as comfortable in. But I would really wish we would talk about that so that we could actually get to the root of the issue.
Why would I defend their motivations? I don't understand. I'm on the side of I'm
saying to defend your interpretation of their motivations and make sure that it's not what Destiny thinks it is, which is some massive straw man of that they all hate trans people, right? We want to actually get to it so that Destiny doesn't go and tell his massive stream of people that we're all circle jerking about stupid shit right now.
Oh, he's gonna do that anyways. But
Destiny
Dead, so we can actually get trans rights in his audience, right? So that we can actually get that, so we can stop being stupid right now.
Well, it'd be great if Prime and others would substantiate what they think are the motivations of folks like, say, Governor Abbott. You guys seem to spend so much time imputing and presuming motivations, and then you guys use words like pretend, like the other side is pretending to care, as you smear them as bad faith actors with illegitimate or uncredible arguments. And I think Destiny's point was getting to, why waste your mental effort and energy and time on trying to impute false motives to folks simply to scrape them away? You guys just avoid dealing with the actual arguments they're making.
So not all of us,
the truth.
Except that that actually hasn't been the case. We actually have been attacking this directly. So we can go back to, if you guys are so uncomfortable with dealing the reality of how conservatives operate in the real world and the intentions behind that, that's okay, right? If it gives you the heebie-jeebies to talk about, sure, we can go back to the actual discussion itself, right? We were talking about changing the leagues, right? How we divide athletes, right? We could divide them on an axis other than sex, right? We can do that. If that's what you want to do, we can make that happen, right?
We have
sorry, excuse me, hon.
Wait, what was the consensus on? What was the consensus on that? I'm so curious.
Yeah, I think there was. I'm not sure if there was a consensus, but we talked about. I was saying that. Indeed, we should be able to divide other and axes other than sex, and that if we understand that there's biological advantages within sports, right, that's more than just sex, right? It follows on many other characteristics.
You're always going to have some sex differentiation, no?
Not necessarily.
Why?
No.
Yeah.
Can somebody name one category where men and women are equal? It's not weight. It's not height.
Well, hold on. Just because they're going to cluster in different categories doesn't mean it's along sex lines, right?
Can you name one sport where women outperform men?
So, Destiny, if the upper category, right? Let's say the upper league, whatever you want to call it, right? Mm-hmm. Is almost all men, then that's okay, right? If that's how it shakes out, then that's fine. Okay, and that league, the heavyweight league, whatever, right? Men
say stuff
exist.
Like this, you justify the existence of turfs. They were right. You do want to destroy women's spaces. That's what you're saying.
Hold on. First of all, I don't give a shit about
what.
Okay, hold on, wait. Okay, I'm sorry. I didn't know how to explain that. Right. So you're essentially saying you want to eliminate women's sports in the professional world. That if the top echelon is all men, then that's okay, and then you have lower brackets that women somehow get into. Hopefully, if enough.
No, you can have like different weight classes that are all going to be like the top of their league.
Wait, no, you can't. Oh, a 120 pound
categories again.
Wait, hold on, wait. A 120 pound woman is not going to be competitive with a 120 pound man in any sport. That's why I'm at.
That's right. So wait, no. That's not true because in like running, that is true.
Okay, and besides extreme endurance sports,
but if we go on the other things, we don't have to use weight classes for everything. Weight classes can work for things like running, but we can also use endocrine classes for other sports. There's a
endocrine
variety.
Classes aren't the same. No, there's no variety. You have to at some point differentiate between sex, or else you're eliminating women from these sports.
What do you think? What do you think endocrine classes would be, Destiny? What do you think endocrinological sex is?
Like classifying people based on the current level of their hormone profiles or whatever?
No. You should go research the biology, then talk about the biology afterwards.
Okay, hold on, no, wait. Why don't, please explain this to me so I can tell you how fucking stupid you are. Go ahead. Tell me what the endocrine profile is. You don't have a definition.
Endocrinological sex.
About to get owned.
Endocrinological sex is not the case with endocrinological sex. It's based on the level of the hormones in the body. Endocrinological sex is based on the effects of those hormones.
How do you measure the effect of a hormone?
Are you serious?
Yes. So I'm gonna take a man and a woman. I'm gonna take a man and a woman, and I'm gonna have both of them resistance training for 2 years. How do you measure the effects of?
You want me to answer your questions?
Yeah, go ahead. That's why I'm asking. I'm asking you. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, sure. So we can measure the height. That's one effect hormone levels can have on a person. It could be the case that like the hormones make you grow taller or shorter. It could be the case that hormones make you have a certain. Hold on. Wait. Go ahead.
So instead of, because I know you want a verbal diarrhea, a whole bunch of nonsense bullshit.
No, you asked me.
I didn't know science was nonsense bullshit.
To answer your question.
My request is let's go one thing at a time. Okay. So you're telling me So you're telling me that you can determine how much of a person's height was influenced by a hormone.
No.
We have actively
So
determined
what did you just say? Repeat it back.
Is anti-science.
Sure. You can measure the influences. You can measure like the things that hormones influences, and endocrinological sex is the things that are influenced by the hormones.
Okay, but if I have a man that's 6 feet tall and a woman that's 6 feet tall, what does that tell me? What information do I get there?
It tells you that one very small aspect of the overall field of endocrinological sex is going to be more masculine in this woman than it is on average.
Okay, all you're doing is in a very wordy way recreating both sex categories.
Yes.
No, exactly. No sex. No, not even close. Sex categories exist in endocrinological sex. That's one sex category. There's chromosomal sex, which wouldn't be the same as endocrinological sex. For example, if somebody has like De La Chapelle syndrome, they'd have female female chromosomal sex, but male endocrinological sex. It's not the case either the same as like normal sex categories.
So how would you determine how one's height is so if you have a 5'11" woman, how would you determine that's more of an endocrinological expression of sex rather than like a genetic expression of sex? How would you begin to determine that?
So all expressions of sex, I'm not sure what do you think a genetic expression of sex would be?
Well, let's see. Different genetics, I'm guessing, between men and women probably express different hormone profiles in different ways, and those hormone profiles will probably have an effect on some phenotypical things that you have in your life as well. Whether you're talking about bone density, whether you're talking about height, whether you're talking about VO capacity in your lungs, like these are going to be things that are ultimately expressed by the interplay between your hormone profile and your biology or whatever, right?
So the answer to your question is you don't tell the difference because all of them are endocrinological.
So what have you done? Can you give me an example of how you're using this to create a classification that doesn't just get us male and female at the end of the day?
Because you don't karyotype people when you want to put them in sports. Instead, you can take a look at the the sex characteristics that the endocrine system produces, and then you compare trans athletes up in women's sports, and you can compare like trans man athletes up in men's sports.
Okay. Give me an example of this.
An example of what?
Of what you just said.
Of this being done and operating.
I have no idea how you would even begin. I don't think you understand how unbelievably complicated.
Olympics right now are based on hormones.
That type of analysis is unbelievably crude and it's bullshit. So why would you even use that as an example? That's not some complicated endocrinology. That's just taking a reference range of hormones for 2 years and saying
the only analyses we can do are going to be abstractions. We can't ever do. We can't find a perfect level of how
which is why we
meritocratically female and sex you are, and throw you in with the perfect female sex range.
I agree. That's why it should just be male and female. You can't do just a hormone profile. So we got all the way back to the Olympic definition, which is what I said initially.
Just
that you were really
degender it completely.
And now you're just saying it's a hormone profile.
No,
okay.
just degender it completely. Degender it completely. So who gives a fuck if women can't compete at the top level? If they can't do it, they can't fucking do it.
That's essentially what the argument seems to be.
I don't fucking care. Degender it. If a woman can rise to the top and end up in the NFL and do her shit, then fuck yeah. If a woman can rise up and be in the NBA, fuck yeah. I don't give a fuck.
What is the objection, Destiny? What is the so like? Are you saying that are you here protecting women's spaces? Is that your point, or are you saying
the arguments are dog shit? I don't give a fuck. I hate women. Okay, I'm an incel. All right.
Well, look,
but I think the arguments that like it doesn't matter or it's all arbitrary are bullshit. Like a trans woman athlete has basically been like competing with performance-enhancing drugs flowing throughout their entire body for the better part of their existence, and then switches sexes or however you would say it via HRT and is pretending to be on the same level now. That's absolute bullshit. It's not even remotely resembling reality.
It depends entirely on the sport.
It does. Okay. Okay. In case of like Olympic power walking or like massive endurance sports, fine. But for 98% of sports, it's incredibly relevant.
Well, no, it does depend on which sport we're talking about.
What's an example of that
sport?
Then?
Destiny, it is very complicated.
For example, in the stuff everyone's losing their shit over, the Leah Thomas example, the NCAA, which is the organization regulating this, says that you're good to go after a year, which, you know, Thomas met, and so she was good to go.
And
sure, but that qualification though is bullshit. You can't train as a biological male for the most important athletic years of your life and then do 1 or 2 years of hormone therapy and say, oh, look, we're on the same level now. That's insane.
I mean, the NCAA seemed to say
how many trans women have
I can actually speak specifically to this experience, so give me a second, damn it, I've been waiting.
An athlete,
okay?
You did disc golf. You did disc golf.
No,
oh my god, you little memer, just shut up.
One mom, please.
Thank you. Okay.
Lord.
There is a difference when it comes to certain sports in the way that, like, as a male athlete would do something versus the way a female athlete in the same sport would do something. The technique is different. In a lot of sports, men are going to do something with more power, women are going to do something with more finesse. But that doesn't mean seriously, form can be different.
Are you saying that like the form of like male swimmers lacks finesse? This is just absolutely not true. Like finesse is going to exist in every single elite athlete male sport. I'm sorry.
Okay. What about take for example gymnastics, where women frequently outcompete.
Hold on. The blind moms are waiting.
Like the technique thing is like really specific, right? If I go to I'm going to go back to rock climbing on this one, which is now an Olympic sport, so just deal with it. When you look at pro women that climb at the same difficulty level as pro men, they do so in a different way. The men will do things that are more powerful and more dynamic, and the women do things that are more relevant on like footwork, technique, and balance. That's just how it works, okay? But my point here is that when you are used to training and you leaning on that strength, and then you lose all of that strength, you have to learn everything to a degree. It was a very huge deal for me. When I lost all of my muscle mass from transition, I actually started getting massive injuries because I had these techniques that were built for working around all of this muscle that I had. That muscle was then gone, and I started hurting myself and had to start using different techniques and different strategies.
So could you still throw as far?
No. It took certainly not for like quite a while, and I still can't. I got close, but I had to massively relook and refine my form.
Well, but this doesn't really. It doesn't make too much sense because then essentially the men who were such more powerful, if they just add this finesse, then their distance and strength would increase also. So you would still have this gap.
No, they can't add the finesse. It's like Tiger Woods in golf. If he overbuffs it, then he starts slicing and hooking the ball, and you just can't.
You can't add the finesse.
We're talking about rock climbing.
You're saying you get to a point where you're too strong to add finesse
in golf.
You could just swing lighter.
Wait, no, that is actually. Do you think John Daly, when he was hitting the huge stuff with super high swing speeds, do you think that was finesse? Or was that power?
Yes, it's a combination of both.
I've had that swing speed.
I think the
well,
case
look,
is
I was going to
simply
make the
that
argument
if we
earlier.
care about sex as a differentiation between the sports for underlying reasons, that we can sort of create new classifications based on those literal underlying reasons.
But we can't.
Even if that recreates the exact same sort of distribution of men and women on the edges, the strongest women and the weakest men, there can be some crossover.
But
and that is then going to be more accommodating to trans people.
You're not going to get society on board recreating classifications.
Debate board. On debate board. Sorry, that's I didn't mean debate board. I'm sorry. I mean Vanilla Ice. You can Joe, then Dylan Blay. Okay.
Yeah, so like Destiny asked for an example, and everyone's saying we can create these classes, but no one's given an example of what these classes would actually be. Because it seems like Synth was trying to get towards height, and as the measurement. But if you put all the heights, if you made all the classes by height, you're still going to have the men dominate in each of those classes. If you make it by weight, you're still going to have the men dominate each of those classes. So what are these classes that you're saying that we can use to separate these people if we get rid of the gender?
I don't think it's by height. What do you get?
No, it's by look. This is a thing that they. This is a thing that. This is something that already happens. Sully's going to be mad at me about talking about disc golf. I get it, but
not a sport.
Yeah, that's fine. In many sports, there are ways to take statistics on performance. Right? If it's swimming, it's what's your time on like 100, whatever, etc., etc. You can use those results and average your performance at various competitions to come up with skill ratings. This is a thing they already do in the professional disc golf thing. And if you put 1,000 rated woman against 1,000 rated man, they're statistically going to have the equal chance of winning against each other.
Yeah, but wait, you're going to create a system.
I don't want to eliminate. I want to be clear. I don't want to eliminate the gender stuff, but there are ways to do it.
You're going to create a system then where no woman gets to 1,000. It's going to be all men at 1,000, and women are going to cluster at like 700 or 800.
I'm just saying that there's a possibility. I'm just not. I'm not.
But that's not a possibility. That's like saying elo in chess, where women have different elos, which I think they do. But when you compare them to men, they're just all lower. Like that's not a solution. That just gets us back to destroying women.
You know what? So should trans women not be able to play chess with women? Should trans women not be able to play chess with cis women then? Since there's an inherent advantage for men in chess.
I'm just saying that in places where we've drawn a distinction between men and women sexually, it seems like we can't have somebody that changes sides in their 20s playing now for, well, it's really only talking about trans women because trans men will never be competitive with anything because everything we're saying is true. Nobody cares about men regardless. But like that just seems to be an issue where if we've drawn this distinction between men and women, you can't have people that can train as a biological male and then compete against biological women. It just doesn't seem to be fair in any sense of the word.
Let's go to Dylan. Dylan Blay, and then we'll
why do you say after you're getting your muscles fucked? Imagine being a woman and having your muscles fucked your whole life. That's what being a woman is.
I want to talk now. It's Dylan time.
Have you ever taken this shit? You ever taken this? It does stuff.
Hold on. I'm sorry, not to be transphobic. Hold on. I'm sorry, but like.
Go ahead. No, finish your point, Destiny.
Come on. Like, if you're a trans woman, you don't have periods. There's a whole lot of stuff that you don't have to deal with that women that actually compete and train and condition do have to deal with. Imagine being a man and just fucking slitting your wrist once a month and just bloodletting yourself in order to and then doing that and still training. There are going to be a lot of conditions that are revolving around women that are special to their training that aren't going to revolve around men. And when you say, well, when you take hormones, you're fucking your muscles over for a year, that means you got to train with advanced muscles for like 20 years, depending on when you transition. It's the worst argument ever.
Do you think?
I'm really curious about what.
Okay, now we're going to deliberate and debate more.
Well, see, this is kind of the thing that I wanted to respond to because I think it speaks somewhat to Synth's point there. Like endocrinological profiles sort of more so speak to the deterministic factors of someone's capabilities in terms of their like physiognomy. So like I think that was an important point to be made because it's different like than an inherent difference based on like something that's completely different as opposed to like primary sexual characteristics like genitals, right? Like these are completely different things that don't really determine someone's abilities to compete on an athletic level, which is why I think that was a good point to be made there as opposed to just relating it to like sexual characteristics because there's so many ways to determine or like there's so many differentiations based on like sex lines, you know, that might surround something like primary sexual characteristics as opposed to like what Synth was talking about earlier, De La Chapelle syndrome, right? Where someone might have like an irregular chromosomal disorder would be deterministic of something else, right? So I think typically speaking, it's hormones that kind of have a bigger influence as opposed to having a PP or a vajayjay in terms of whether someone's going to be like actually physically capable or athletic in certain regards, right?
But
so
again,
it's a deterministic factor for certain parts of performance.
So, again, no one has given us a class. No one's given the class that would give us the.
Yeah, you did.
No.
Yeah, we did.
I want to posit.
Just say the class. If there is a class,
Weinman gave a performance-based class about averaging times. No one has given us an endocrine-based class that's going to give us this separation that we're looking for.
You want us to name it? You're just saying like pick names for the classes?
Yes. Name.
No. What is the trait?
Name and describe, Synth. Name and describe.
No, okay. It would be based on like endocrinological sex. That would be the description, and you can name it like Class A, Class B.
What
is the characteristic?
What is Class A? What is Class B, Synth?
Sure. So Class A, we could do Class A. Could be how we could we could take a look at the median level of like testosterone in society or whatever.
Destiny said that, and you laughed at it, but you said it wasn't based on testosterone.
Gee, please give me a fucking second here. We could do this yeah, it's not just based on testosterone levels. If you let me finish my sentence, you understand what I'm saying. So we do it based on testosterone levels over a current period, like a long enough period of time, like maybe go 3 years or something. And if you take a look at the average trans woman after 2 years of hormones, it is the case that almost every single biological advantage that Destiny's talking about is completely gone. I have no idea what data you're using to get the idea, Destiny, that there's this massive biological advantage in like trans women after 2 years of hormones. Because if you look at you mentioned periods earlier, I don't know why you think it's the case that like a cis woman athlete or something would have to not work out when she's on her period. There's no medical reason whatsoever for this. I think you just made that up.
I just fucking hate my life.
So
that was the most male fucking thing you've ever said in your entire life. Bro, people miss fucking weigh-ins in their fucking MMA classes because they have a fucking period and it ruins their shit. Talk to a woman at one point in your entire fucking life and ask them how that might affect it can affect schooling, it can affect training, it can affect a million different things.
Disagree.
Why does it say something schooling? So fucking stupid?
You can work out when you're on your period. What are you talking about?
Working out when you're pushing yourself, when your sleep has to be perfect, when your diet has to be perfect, when your protein has to be perfect, and you just fucking lose a fuck ton of blood and your hormones are going crazy, that can fuck your training. Like when you are training and you're actually crazy,
a lot of women who are training don't even have periods. Do you know that? A lot of women that are physically training very hard.
You can take different hormone things to not have periods. That's possible.
No, it's not.
Sure.
It's almost like females that complete at the top like physical threshold
actually working.
Do that.
Because of their body, a woman's body working will have period. What do you mean?
I mean, when they're working out, when they're training for these things, a lot of times there are situations where they miss periods or their menstrual cycle's off or it goes off for quite a while. So yes, it could be possible that they are having a menstrual cycle while they're training for these things. It is possible. It's very possible.
If your menstrual cycle is off, it's because you're undergoing extreme stress, something is messing with your hormones, or you're taking some sort of like hormone blocking, period blocking, like birth control or something. It shouldn't happen normally under like...
Usually, yeah.
Do you think training for intense athletic events would not be considered stress on your body?
Yes, it would.
It could be, but it's not going to be the case that every single... Talk to women athletes.
Go talk to women athletes, Destiny. Go talk to women bodybuilders that are not using PEDs.
Destiny, talk to any athletes. Talk to any athletes. Like,
honestly, I think
I want to get your name before that we got to get to.
Can I really quick just one question? Destiny, when you said like during the period you lose a ton of blood, how much is a ton of blood?
Enough that it would probably affect your day. I don't know the measurements. I haven't put a fucking cup under my girlfriend's fucking vagina and tested it.
You don't lose. You lose about like 3 tablespoons. No, you don't lose enough to affect your day. That's ridiculous. You have no idea what you're talking about.
There are women that literally suffer like iron deficiency and shit because they don't get enough in their diet.
There are rare women who suffer iron deficiency, therefore the average woman's period is causing them to lose a ton of blood. Are you serious?
It's a part of what happens with the female body.
Don't focus on the ton of blood, Sam. It
was a ridiculous point.
You can Google like iron. Google periods and anemia or periods and iron deficiency. Like holy shit, what the fuck?
You're saying there are rare women who have like iron deficiencies from like the blood loss during periods, and thus like typically the period is losing a ton of blood.
Also, don't typically top female athletes have like, proper vitamin efficiencies and things of that nature? Like, don't they tend to be in better physical shape than, like, I wouldn't say your average person who lives like a day-to-day normal life as opposed to professional athletes who compete at the top professional levels?
Yeah, let's go to the debate board.
Oh, no.
Oh, yes. So somebody asked why we care about the sex division in sports, and there is a collective we here that cares because absent these protected divisions for women, there'd simply not be elite sports for women. and you would essentially erase women from international medal-based competition. That's why we respect the sex division. That's why we would prefer to maintain that sex division. All right. Secondly, somebody asked about trans men competing in chat quite a while ago, and why we rarely see trans men competing even close to natural born men. And back to Wine Mom 4's point earlier, the sense that performance advantages don't dissipate rapidly once you start suppressing testosterone. It's not a 1 year, it's not even a 2 year. And folks who were doing the early anecdotal observational studies for the NCAA have started to turn around their conclusions on this. And we're seeing that it's not even after 3 years that we're seeing a significant dissipation in this performance advantage when you start suppressing testosterone. And
source?
I dropped it into the regular chat.
No, he is correct about that.
So Wine Mom 4's point earlier about men transitioning to trans men and competing against women, and in some places that performance advantage dissipating. Well, it doesn't go the other way. Trans men cannot accrue.
Can you drop it in VC chat? It's going to get drowned out in any other chat.
Yes, if I can finish talking, I will do my best to get into VC chat. So this focus, I think, this hyper focus on the dissipation of performance, it's used only in one direction, and that's to argue that, well, trans women ought to be given the benefit to grow and learn their sport for 20 years and then compete against normal women. But that doesn't go the opposite direction. We don't recognize that trans men are bulking up to be able to compete satisfactorily against natural born men.
Yeah, we do.
No, we don't. To be clear, no, we don't. And whenever you ask for examples, if there's like 2 trans men that are given, one that has like 1 finish in a boxing match ever, and then another one that does race walking in the Olympics.
So we'll go to
trans men are
what about the hockey player? What about the pole vaulter?
I want to get Dr. K in here, and then Ashley, who actually has a bit of knowledge on this. So I called Ashley in because she's good with this stuff. So Dr. K, then Ashley.
Yeah. Okay. It's been a while since this sort of was being talked on, but one, I think Wine Mom's like essentially idea of a ranking system based on skill is completely fine, and that you have classes for like the 800 to 1000, the 600 to 799, shit like that. Sounds completely reasonable to me. And if it eliminates women's spaces from sports and makes it so that, I mean, keep in mind, it'd be eliminating men's spaces from sports as well, and I have absolutely no issue with that. The turfs are completely right. I do want to actually get rid of gendered spaces in the sports arena, and that they are 100% right. And I don't base my opinions off of what the most radical turfs, fear that I'm going to do. And moreover, way back, right, is... Governor Abbott is explicitly transphobic. He essentially, the original reason for him initiating those laws was he was gunning up fear of child abuse for something that essentially didn't exist. And so, it is pretty clear that he's throwing red meat to a base to try and appeal to the most hateful people in Texas and ginny them up for the upcoming elections.
Dr. K, just to try to build a bridge, even if you don't think you should change what you literally believe based on people, do you think that there maybe could be a sort of concession as to what we're pushing for with the realities of what is feasible, sort of like a Hillary Clinton private versus public position based on where public opinion is?
No, I think the point buy system is fine, and turfs, if they don't like that, can shove it, I guess.
All right, thank you for answering.
Let's go to Ashley.
Oh, sorry, I'm muted. I actually talked with Flotrace about this the other day. So, with sports, especially with women's sports versus men's sports, the original reason that this division actually happened was because men's sports were so better funded and men were so much more established in the sporting world that having them compete against women that were just now starting and entering the field back in the 1800s would just be ridiculous, right? It would never be even. So I think that a lot of the division that we had based on sex for all this time, definitely there's warrant to it, but it was based on kind of like an imbalance there. So I would say that if we are going to separate sports based on sex, we should also consider separating sports based on income. I mean, if you look at income, that's another big predictor of how good you are going to be at sports. And that's likely because you don't have as much time to actually practice. That can mean a lot of things, right? Like, you can't really just go into sports if you don't have disposable income. You just can't. So if we are going to put like brackets on sex, I think that we should consider putting brackets on income. We should consider putting brackets on other predictors of that kind of stuff. Like, look at someone like Michael Phelps, for instance, right? He has a very abnormal wingspan. He has abnormal like lactic acid, and that's why he's the top swimmer. Like, there's definitely skill that he's put into it, right? But you look at these other genetic anomalies that he has, and that's really like a big part of why he's able to be at the top. So when we're talking about like trans women in sports, I think this is just pushing a conversation about sports that we all need to start to have in general, and it's not trans specific, about why are we separating sports based on sex when we should probably separate it based on other things. I just came in, I'm sorry if I missed, but that's my opening and like kind of response.
Based.
That was pretty good, thank you.
I would like to comment that is the dumbest fucking thing I've ever heard in my entire life. We're not making separate brackets for sports based on income. This is just delusion. Like, this is never happening, right?
I'm not saying it. I'm not actually advocating that we should do that. I'm saying that, like, if we're going to do this, we should consider doing it.
Okay, it's comparable to the sex.
If we look at where the population is, right, 99% of people are okay with the classifications of where they are. Why would we ever expect to make any headway with the idea that we actually need to have like 52 different divisions? Which, by the way, even if we draw those divisions, there's still going to be male-female divides in those divisions. And we're
That's
still
a straw man. Who cares?
Unpopular societal changes can never occur. That's a good position, Destiny.
Weird moral realism take. Weird moral.
You would never want to make an unpopular position more popular. Why would you do that?
So, to be clear, I understand that like we're never going to divide sports on income, right? But what I'm trying to say is that the science is really showing that, at least like in the woman and men division, that maybe we could make changes to that to allow women to compete with men and like make the sports more even, right?
But women don't want to compete with men. That's the issue.
Right, that's the problem. Women are not able to successfully compete against men in the vast majority of athletic endeavors. That's why we see the top 300 high school boys completely wrecking 9-time gold medal Olympic women sprinters. I mean, that you're still going to end up with a male-female distinction simply because of that performance advantage problem.
Yes, you're going to mostly end up with a male-female thing. We're just talking about a slight variation for trans people.
Hey, Pirate Empress, how you doing tonight?
Absolutely
it's
right.
good seeing you stream again. It's been so long.
Because 99% of the people.
I hope it was a good stream for you.
What we're talking about here is because it's interesting and it's titillating or whatever the hell it is, and people enjoy chatting about it.
Well, I think the thing with Ashley's point that I really want to add to is the important or the significance of what they said was that income is still a deterministic factor for people's performance, supposing that that's correct,
right? You're still going.
So why wouldn't we take that into consideration comparable to sex? If there's deterministic factors...
Income is so much more malleable, right? There are poor kids in the NBA. There are no women competitive in the NBA.
And there's HRT, which makes people's physiognomy malleable for their competitive ability.
HRT does not get... I don't know if there are no trans people on this panel, or I don't know if they're all fake, or what, but HRT is not the be-all and end-all of transitioning. Talk to any number of trans people that are fucking off themselves, because HRT alone doesn't get you all the way there. Once you've gone through puberty... Once you've gone through puberty, as a certain sex, there is a ton of stuff that changes in your body that is really, really fucking hard to undo or impossible to undo. You can't just do HRT and be the same as the sex that you want to be.
Here you go. Right. I grew up poor, and now I'm fat because of it. And I was fat throughout the entirety of my teenage years, all right? So my body has been conditioned to be a little fatso my whole life, all right? Why isn't that a divide between, like income? Why wouldn't that make me subject
because
to
there was the possibility in your life that even though you were poor, you could have not been fat. There's no possibility.
No, I was poor, and my mom took me to McDonald's all the time because we were poor and we had no time, and she worked.
I don't know. I think your mom dropped you on the floor a couple times in your head too. I don't know what else.
No. There's a bunch.
I don't know what else to say. Go to a doctor, get a fucking X-ray, figure out what's loose.
Steve, if you can't contest the argument, then don't make a ridiculous ad-hom that
it's not a ridiculous. It's that I can show you poor people that are not fat, and I can show you a lot of poor people that are fat, but I can't find you a single woman that can be competitive in like 95% of male sports. That's the difference. But you don't.
So you're discounting all the female tennis players. The fact that gymnastics is almost entirely female. The fact
Hold on, wait a second. You said female tennis players. Hold on, wasn't it the case that like the rank 1 female tennis player lost like 49 times in a row to like the rank 400 male tennis player? Like, you want to talk about gymnastics? Women can compete in some special things because of the size and shape of their bodies, but men don't compete in those same events.
Even if that was the case, that would only be for
men
those
compete in gymnastics. What the fuck are you talking about?
No, but so
we're talking about sports broadly.
Dylan,
Destiny is saying that men don't compete in gymnastics?
No, hold on.
They don't compete against women.
There's not a thing called gymnastics. Gymnastics is a whole bunch. There's a ton of different things in gymnastics.
Yes,
men and women don't
every
do the
event
same
in
events.
gymnastics in the Olympics, women outcompete men drastically.
They're not
If that was the
competing
case, that would
against
only be supporting your argument for gymnastics. But I think all of us are making your argument about sports generally.
Well, Dylan.
Okay, fine. Synchronized swimming.
No, with Dylan, this whole income argument.
That's still just another.
That's another sport.
For Vanilla, he's been trying to get it out. Please, Vanilla.
Yeah, so Dylan, this whole income argument, are you saying that a woman who was raised in a household that made $100,000 is going to be comparable to a man who was raised in a household that made $100,000 as far as their ability to compete in athleticism?
How did you get the impression Dylan was saying that?
Yeah, that's a weird extrapolation of my argument.
You said
my argument is that a kid
incomes, right?
Yeah, so my argument is that a kid who has like, wealthier parents, right, who's able to sign them up for sports lessons when they're young, give them access to a gym, training facilities, all of these things, is going to be more athletically capable than little fatso Timmy who went to McDonald's every day and ate a junior chicken, and now he's like got a BMI of 26.
Yeah, so you're saying all that
fat kids are way worse at sports than kids who are not fat. And the deterministic factors behind poverty, which tend to show that poor people are fatter and more likely to be obese, is a very good deterministic factor for their athletic capabilities.
See, this is
so are you saying? No, hold on.
Real quick. So this is where we see this fetish with incomes completely melts down on itself, because we see.
Look, dude, if you're going to give me some ridiculous, like, fucking Jordan Peterson, big brain, like, sit in the chair argument, it's just like a monologue, like, just make the point.
Yeah, so, Dylan, if you go, so are you saying that we should or shouldn't separate these classes based off income? Or yes or no?
No, I'm saying that it doesn't matter to me. I'm saying that the case logically can be made for you to separate people based on sex, just like income.
But it can't be.
Yeah, so
like I said,
just
to be clear, for the 50 millionth time, there are no women that are competitive with men in men's sports. There are poor people that could be competitive with wealthy people in sports. That's the difference.
And I think the other problem, Dylan, is that if you're, I think what Vanilla's trying to get across here is that if it's the same sort of logical basis for division along gender or sex with division among income, well, you are advocating for sort of abolishing that division. Should we not be doing the same?
Well, I haven't really thought about that particular aspect of the argument, but I'm saying that the logic is consistent for the other argument.
No, I asked you this question. You said, no, it's not what you're saying. If you're saying that the income segregation is the same as the sex segregation, then we should be able to create leagues based off the income. And so then you would have a male who was raised in the house that made $100,000 competing against a woman who was raised in the house that made $100,000. So you think that would be fair?
I think that would be relatively equitable to someone who's
for showing up, and I hope him and Destiny go at it a little bit. But we were talking. Go, Dylan.
Yeah, sorry. I was saying. I was saying that. I'm saying that a woman and a man who are born in similar circumstances probably have relativistic, or I should say, a woman born in like a wealthier position than a man has a higher relativistic chance to being competitive in a sport, or equitable chance to someone who was born in poverty.
Okay, but we're not talking. Wait. We're not talking about being competitive in a sport within themselves, because you're saying this woman has a better chance to be competitive in the sport against other women.
I'm not saying either which way. I'm saying that they're both deterministic.
You are saying nothing.
Competitive.
You are saying nothing.
No, I am saying that they're equitable.
What is that?
Deterministic, equitable. You haven't made either one of those points.
Wait, so is it like a woman is walking down the street and like a guy goes to rape her? She's like, bro, I make $250K a year. What are you like working at McDonald's? You're not gonna beat me. And she like beats the shit out of the guy because she's strong. Like I don't even know where the fuck we're at right now and what world we're at in this discussion.
What have I come into? What is?
I think part of the problem.
If you guys want to up my class, please sub to the channel, give bits or give subs.
I think I can clear what Dylan's trying to say.
Okay, why, Mom? Do you want to do that? Ashley, I know you wanted to say something, and then GSU.
Yeah, so I think what Dylan is sort of trying to say is that not that we should separate sports on income. He's just saying that it is a thing that can be somewhat determinate. If I have two people, like even the ability of someone to hire good coaches, have better equipment while they're younger, money is a bit of a predictor at the same gender when it comes to the ability to become a professional athlete. It is. It helps. I don't.
Yeah, no one's disagreeing with that. But
okay.
you're saying,
I think that's his point.
Yeah,
no, but he's saying that the
factor.
income.
What part of that don't you understand?
No, you're saying that the income separation, or using the income as determinant, is equitable to the separation between sex. And we're saying that no, it's not, because if you look at comparing just someone based off their income, if you compare the male who's raising income that made the same amount as a woman who made the same amount, you're going to get two completely different outcomes if you're only using income as a factor, which you're saying we can, just like we use sex only as a factor.
Well, this is just dumb on its face in a lot of ways, right?
Yeah,
like,
it's just stupid.
If this argument made sense, then the NBA would be full of white people.
True.
It's almost the inverse, right?
And the NFL and
well, maybe we should.
Well, that one guy was saying earlier that black people were stronger than white people.
I'm gonna finish. So what we have to understand is that the sociological factors that force black people to take up positions in entertainment or sports are there because of the lack of economic opportunity elsewhere. So people that can become fucking doctors and all this other shit that is more stable, more likely, they would go into those positions if they're economically successful than trying to be one of 7 billion to get this one spot on an NBA team. So like, I think there are inverse proportional factors that drive people into sports, and income is one of them.
So the thing with that is this could be looked at from like two different angles. There's people who use that as like a motivation or a driving factor because they want to achieve some more success in their life. But then there's also people who were raised in like such a way in which they didn't have access to anything to begin with. So it would make it incredibly difficult for these people to actually get into the positions that they're trying to be in. Right? That's what I'm saying. And I don't know what's difficult to understand about a child who is raised in poverty, whose parent raises them, and they make certain life choices regarding their diet, regarding their physical health.
Gambit, 1 second. I need to ask really quickly. Really quick. I love you.
I didn't even get to finish my sentence, but go on.
I need to. This is going to drive me insane.
Look,
I'm going to choose me. I'm going to judge you.
Shut up! Oh my god! Everyone who's not Prime, be quiet. All right. Doobie's a handsome guy, so we'll go to Doobie, and then we'll go to GSU. We'll go to order of handsomeness, okay? Doobie, GSU, and then whoever the fuck you were talking to. And then Ashley, because she's been waiting.
We don't need to get deep into this. We don't need to get deep into this, but so if you're saying that we should, because income might be a factor that might be deterministic as like whether or not somebody gets access to the training they need to be a professional athlete or whatever the fuck. Why wouldn't you also have like mental health breakdowns in the leagues, right? Oh, this person has an anxiety disorder. This person has depression. So hey, there's the depressed league, right? Where they're very sad and all the time. Here's the bipolar league, right? You could break this down to fucking everything. It doesn't. Why would we do that? That doesn't make any fucking sense.
What I'm saying is that is also like things like that can also be extrapolated to be deterministic of someone's performance, right? Like typically when you think of like a depressed person, right? A depressed person's not going to wait, I'm not done. A depressed person on average is not going to be the greatest athlete of all time. You see a trend within these people that a lot of them are like bedridden or like they have a lot more difficulties functioning in society due to their mental illness as compared to people who have like, I would say like more of a standard mental health profile.
So,
but then you're still going to
Can I jump in really quick?
Categories, please.
So the answer is yes.
Can I jump in? I really want to ask Doobie one quick question, and I'm okay with like anybody else jumping in. Doobie, yeah, this is gonna. I don't want this to sound bad faith. I'm genuinely curious. Are you, how do you feel about dissolving the Special Olympics?
I don't feel about it. I don't give a fuck about it, right?
Oh,
but
okay.
but if you guys were if you guys wanted to talk about like making a special like sports league for people with mental health issues, fucking go for it. I guess if you can get support, I don't give a fuck.
There is one. The Special Olympics.
Yes. No, but that's like physical like handicaps, right? It's not like mental health shit.
No, I think
this is a quick thing. Even if you make these leagues, they're still going to be divided by male and female, though. You're not going to have a depression league with depressed men.
I think most of
so let's
yeah, but you're also going to have people divided.
Let's work our way back. So GSU, then Ashley.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
So I don't know where y'all are in this conversation a little bit because I think everything Dylan's saying is crazy, but I do want to posit something. So I've been having this conversation on Prime panels for a while, and what people said in the beginning, and I knew they were lying. They said, "Hey, HRT reduces all of these physiological attributes that we know it doesn't reduce." And they were like, "So this thing is fair for cisgender women to be pitted against trans women because all of their advantages are reduced." Now that the data is there, that y'all alluded to, which y'all don't want to accept, is there, that says that those characteristics are not reduced, and there is some level of advantage that's preserved.
You show this data?
Even you can look it up. It's from Harvard. It's from UK data, and there's a third source too. You can go look it up. You have Google. I have faith that you can find.
Yeah,
it.
no, I'm
no. If you have it, you can put it in.
If you're citing a source, you can cite the source.
I will Google right after I finish talking. Okay. I'll do your work for you. But anyway, so now that this data exists and it's pretty clear and it's pretty accepted, what are your reasons for saying that this is still fair for cisgender women to compete at a athletic disadvantage? What's y'all new point?
So
I know y'all moved the goalpost.
I could go into this if you would like. So to my knowledge, the data actually is pretty consistent that like trans people after like a certain testosterone level that they'll reach, and a certain amount of transition, generally around 2 years on HRT, they'll generally be able to compete in several sports pretty fairly. Now, I want to be clear. There are sports where trans people, I don't think, can fairly compete. One big one is distance running. HRT cannot reduce your lung capacity enough to make that fair, right?
Yeah, it can't reduce your height. It can't reduce a bunch.
It can't reduce your height as well, and both those are very important to running. So I agree.
Very important to a lot of sports, not just running.
Yeah, a lot of sports. But I'm bringing up distance running because that is the point where you get a 12% increase in win rate. And I agree with you, right? But I just also think that there's other sports that this just isn't shown in the data that this win rate increases, right?
Okay, so hold on. Just so I understand your opinion. Your opinion is there are certain sports where cis women should not be pitted against trans women because trans women have clear, decisive advantages. Is that your opinion? Or would you still say, despite those advantages, they should still be pitted against each other?
I'd say that in certain sports, no. I would be. I would be okay.
So you cited height, and you cited height. You cited what else did you cite? I can't remember.
Lung capacity.
And there's things like reaction time, muscle twitch. So you're saying in those sports where those things. Hold on. I just want to make sure I'm understanding you. In those things, in sports where those things are like very important to the outcomes in that sport, you're saying that in those sports, trans women should not be able to compete with cis women. So if height is a big determining factor,
I'm bringing up the two that I know are the most researched.
Yes, and
I'm saying if you could show research that all of these things were the case.
I'm asking you to make a categorical statement on the advantages that you yourself have admitted you're aware of. So in instances where a sport where height is important, where lung capacity is important, in sports where those things are important, are you willing to make a categorical? Wait, no, but that's what I'm asking you. Are you willing to make a categorical statement that when those things are important due to clear advantages, trans women should not compete against cisgender women? Are you willing to make that statement?
I am not going to make. I'm going to say that this has to be done by sports, right? It can't be a if you want to be fair.
But that's what he's asking. He's asking.
No, I'm denying that. I don't think you can make a solid category.
The point is that the determining factor is not sort of any sort of underlying analysis from like a logic lord level, but the hard data. as to whether or not
it seems like the data says that in distance
running, you can't use that as the data because that's based off the performance of the individual.
Like, no, what GSU is saying is that if there are some athletic events where after you transition, it seems like you still have a massive advantage, would you be okay saying that trans women can't compete against cis women in those events? That's what.
Yes, if the data showed it, then
okay, that's what he's asking.
But the data right now only seem, or there, I could probably get you a list, right? If I sat down and got a list. But like the biggest one that I would note is distance running. But there's other sports where that isn't the case, right? So it seems like the data.
But this data, you can't use the data because this data is based off the performance of that. Hold on, this data is based off the performance of that individual. So if you took the top male and they transitioned and you looked at how often they beat the female competitors versus if you took the 100th ranked male and that person transitioned and looked at how many times they beat their competitors, you have two completely different results. That doesn't tell you how effective the transitioning is in balancing the scale.
There's no doubt that you could have flawed data, but if that's the case, that's something where we need to pull up the study, read through it together.
No, it's not a flaw. You can't. It's not a flaw.
Here, if I can, his point though is, look, if you take Michael Phelps and transition Michael Phelps, right? There's probably a very different transition story for Michael Phelps and the suppression of testosterone and how that affects his performance and achievement versus taking a middling Division I college swimmer like Leah Thomas, transitioning her for a year and seeing her start beating female Olympians in the college national championships.
I agree.
Well, hold on. Let's be clear with Leah Thomas. Leah Thomas was like first place at her university before she took our HRT. She was first place in many events in the men's category, and that 432 number that you keep getting cited is her performance after she started HRT because she was competing in the men's category for a year while she was taking HRT. And so her performance.
I don't think she was first place in any men's category.
Yeah, she was in first place at so no, I can bring it up right now. So at Penn State University.
No. You're comparing this person did at their school to how they're doing nationally today, which is insane.
Okay.
This is literally insanity.
Hold on.
Do you agree?
Holy shit. GSU, why don't you let the person finish first? Let the person finish first.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you agree that
you're not gonna do that? Okay.
That Leah Thomas has had post-transition is wildly different than the success that they had pre-transition?
No, because Leah Thomas was a very respected and a very prominent swimmer before she transitioned.
Wait, in what? What was her place in what?
Within her university, she.
No, hold on. I absolutely don't care.
I can't finish a single sentence.
Can I please finish a sentence?
Yeah. And then I would love for you to respond afterwards. Destiny.
So Leah Thomas placed first in multiple events within her university, and outside of her university, she also placed second in an Ivy League championship and around 60th, 50th in other places. Anyway, the point is to say that nationally. Yeah, sure. I can bring them up right now. Let me just find them. Give me a second.
National stats while she was in the university.
Yeah, because inter-school competition, who cares? It doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. I mean, inter-school competition at like some of the top athletic universities does matter, actually.
Yeah, but compared to national stats, right? Like if you're first place in your school, like that's not as impressive as being like probably third or fourth nationally, right? It's not like
right nationally.
You can respond if you want now, Destiny. While we're waiting, and then I want to debate board. If you had another point, I want to make sure you got that point, and then we'll go to Striker. Yeah.
And first, everybody say goodnight to Dylan.
Good night, Dylan.
Peace, Dylan. You have a good one.
Good night, party people.
Good night, Dylan.
Okay. You don't want to respond, Destiny? All right, that's fine.
He doesn't want to say goodnight to me because he's being a meanie.
I said good night.
He said good night.
Thank you.
I rescind my good night. I hope you have a bad night.
Wow. Wow.
Let's go to debate board if you had something to say.
Yeah, thanks. And this touches on Vanilla's point about the individual transition cases. And I think, Ashley, I would like to extend to you a request that the data, as you keep referring to the data, is not as conclusive as I think you want it to be, or that you may be generally trying to insist it is right now. While you're talking about in certain sports, we see this in certain sports, what that demonstrates is that the data is not consistently swinging in either direction. That suppressing testosterone or other transition-based treatments are resulting in substantial performance reductions. And I think that's an important point to make, because there's this general casual appeal to data here, as though that data is conclusive, and that data carries some weight of authority in this discussion, and I just don't think it does.
Like, if we had debate board, if we had different data, like if we didn't have the data, then you would ask for the data. You know you would.
Wine Mom 4, exactly. I put data. Synth helped me with this earlier. I referred to it earlier. Okay, so look, the data is not conclusive, and yet we casually throw it around as authoritative claims that the data is and the data is not. That's just not the case here. And we ought to be honest about it if we're actually honest about this conversation.
So debate board.
Just to clarify.
Can I ask a couple questions?
It's
just back and
both
forth.
The data and the results that we're looking at, as far as a few other things.
Ashley, yes. Okay, I'll ask you first. Do you have that information? Then you can get that information. Then Ashley, you can have that back and forth. Okay.
Yeah, so Thomas, this wasn't a national, this was an Ivy League, which is just, around New England, but these are still like a large portion of the colleges that compete at the top level. She placed second in the 500, 1000, and 1650 yard freestyle events. So these were large, like the Ivy League championships. She placed second in multiple events. So the idea that Leah Thomas was a nobody middling athlete that went to getting first in the women's division is just wrong. That's not correct.
Can you cross-reference that stats to national stats though for us?
And also, can you post that somewhere? Because
right here. It's in VC chat. Here's the 2019 results. It was I'll put in VC the specific events. It was the 500, 1000, 1650. There you go.
Yeah, so cross that over to national stats as well too for us, if you can find a way to connect that, please.
What do you like? Do you want me to compare her times?
In the national times.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, sure.
On the national times in the same time.
Okay. All right. So then we'll go to Ashley, and then if there's anyone else.
I have a question. I have a question for the panel. So
okay, all right. So no. It's Ashley first. Ashley.
I want to hear Jason answer my question too.
And then Ashley, Phil, Trace, and Jason. Okay.
Okay. So I actually wanted to respond to debate board and go back because he was directly responding to my point earlier. So when we're talking about the data being kind of scattered on this, right, and not perfect, I wouldn't fully disagree with you. I would just also say that the data is showing that in some sports it probably is a problem, and in other sports it's probably not a problem, right? Now, yes, we don't have enough data to be super duper conclusive. I would actually really agree with you. But I'd say that the issue is when we have, with what we have, it's pretty clear that in some sports it's not that effective. Right?
I would also just, in terms of the Leah Thomas person, just if somebody disagrees with this particular thing, you can let me know. But during the 2018-2019 campaign, when Thomas was still a member of her school's men's program, her best time in the 200-yard freestyle was an effort of 1:39:31. I don't even know but 1:39:31. That mark was good for only 554th in the nation of all divisions, and didn't sniff the qualification standard for the NCAA champs. But the moment she went 1:41:93 during a December 2021 invitational, she was ranked first among women. That seems pretty stark.
Hold on. Where was the first? What are you reading that from?
It's everywhere on the top.
This is just about her thing. I can link you the article.
I mean, please, because I want to know what I know. I want to know what's comparing.
Ivy League level, Ivy League swimming doesn't compare favorably to the Pac-12 or to the Big Ten or other, if you will, power football conferences, right? And so consequently, while we saw her time as 1:39 and change in this event as competing as a man, as soon as she transitioned for about a year, and she dropped or slowed down by 2 seconds, she became the #1 competitor among female.
Well, debate board, this is why people release the articles that people like Ash read, because they give off this perception that this person nationally was good before they transitioned when they weren't. And people like Ash hopefully will accept the data that Destiny is putting out there. Everybody knows that this person was not the level of athlete that they are now at all. In any way, it's not comparable.
No, hold on. The 200 yard that you listed was not like an event that she won in. Like her events are the 500, 1,000, and 1650.
Yeah, but you're saying eventually one in school. Like I don't know who's competing in that.
The Ivy League championships.
I don't even know. I don't even know if Ivy. So listen, I'm going to be honest. I don't have a sports background. I have a music background.
I do.
But
I have a sports background.
Okay, then tell me if I'm wrong, and I'd be surprised if I am wrong. My guess is going to be that when you're an athlete in high school or college, you probably pick and choose the events that you compete in. My guess is that even college athletes might skip certain events because they're training for others. Is that true or is that false?
No, that's going to be true.
Okay, so I don't know then who's competing when you say Ivy League school. It might be that the top 1 or 2 or 3
I'm so
athletes
sorry
in that
to hear
school
that.
don't compete in the intra-school things because they're more focused on nationals. That might be the case.
That's
That's why I don't really
horrible.
care about the finishes. That's why we're asking for the times because the times are what are really important here.
And when we're comparing the times compared to records are like in again the 5,000, the 500, the 1,000, 1650 are not that much slower than like overall men's records.
Well, but that's what we're looking at. Like their finish was 554th in the nation for their best 200-yard time. But when they changed to women's, she was first.
Is there any ideally neutral?
So no. Before that, we got Ashley had the back. I forgot our striker person. I'm sorry, I completely dropped.
No worries.
No, I apologize. So Ashley, finish up whatever point you're having. Striker, then Flo Trace, then Jason deciding.
So I just wanted to ask more so a debate board, right? And this is like just me trying to understand like your actual like takes on this, which is if a trans woman did not go through male puberty, so she did not get these advantages. She was at an early age given puberty blockers and then given a female puberty, right? So she did not go through male puberty. Would you be okay with them competing? Because it seems like that would be fine, according to the data I've seen.
What data have you seen that shows that? Because I think there's contrary data. Even like the I don't like to use the word degradation, but the modifications that happen during cisgender female puberty put them, I believe, still at a disadvantage.
Well, but she's saying if it was prepubescent, and I'm going to answer this right now. There's no way there's data for this, right? This is such a niche issue. What?
But there's a different conversation though, Destiny. Even people who are biologically male that don't go through male puberty can have advantages over cisgender women who have went through female puberty.
They might, but the big sexual differentiations happen during puberty. If you puberty,
no, for sure, it's exaggerated. Yeah. Yes, but I'm saying that even still, I don't think there's data to show that non-puberty having biological males perform at the same level of post-puberty cisgender females. I don't think that data exists, and you made the claim that it does. So I want to see.
No, I want to be clear. You interrupted me while I was talking, so I want to be clear on the data that I'm talking about. It's that pre-pubescent trans people that transition seem to be pretty much in line on vitals with cisgender. That's why I'm making the claim.
Yes, but that doesn't mean that post-puberty females
I could agree with you that might be something that's worth studying more, and I would agree that I'm just more so asking. Right? Broad question. That's what I mean to say.
Yeah, for sure.
So I'm asking debate board that.
And I don't know. I don't know. I don't
if
know.
You, okay, I just if you don't know, that's fine.
What happens to a naturally born boy who I guess has some hormone blockers? I guess is somehow blocked from going through puberty, and what that actually means for that boy when they reach 17 or 18. I don't know what that looks like, so I can't answer that question.
Well, let's just round it up real quick because here's what I get from like a lot of people.
Guys, we got a lot of people. We got to make sure we get them all. DB, I saw your hand up too. So let's Ashley, go ahead if you have anything else.
I just wanted to also ask, when we have cases of intersex people competing under as women, right? Because they were assigned women at birth, and they compete as women, would you be for banning those people if they had a advantage over cisgender women?
I don't know. I haven't thought about intersex people in competitive sports because it's such a tiny number of people. It just hasn't crossed my radar.
It's like if you look at like intersex in the population, it's about the same amount of trans people.
Yeah, but we're talking about intersex people in sports, and I just don't know.
Intersex people
actually have an opinion on it.
Intersex people are significantly overrepresented in sports. At least in
their overrepresentation could actually equal 4 across men's athletics around the world. I simply don't know of enough cases to actually draw an opinion. If you have an opinion on that because you have some sense of what that looks like, well, tell us more about it.
Yeah, so it seems like if we would be for banning like trans women completely from women's sports in every case, we probably should consider intersex people, because it seems like XY gonadal dysgenesis is decently common compared to its.
Let me ask you a question.
No, I can't. So we got to move on. We got Stryker, who hasn't had a chance to talk at all. We're going to go to Flowtrace, Jason, and then Doobie.
I think part of the problem that ends up happening when we're having these conversations is we focus heavily on like these individual people rather than thinking about the sports as a whole and thinking about people as a whole and like sexes as a whole with how people develop. And if they're developing for, we're not talking about like a trans person that is just deciding to start playing sports at 23 and after they've been transitioning but not exercising whatsoever through their life, like someone like me. We're talking about people typically that have been training since they were like 13 or 14, and that provides like a significant advantage even if you've been on hormones for quite a while. So it just seems like it's not really a relatively like, I don't think we're like thinking about this in the right perspective.
Thank you. Let's hit up Flowtrace.
Destiny, there was something you said earlier, which I think is just totally true, that regardless of how we feel about a lot of these implementations of things we'd like to do about trans people in sports, they're very unrealistic, and they're not going to happen. Is there anything that you would point to as something more realistic, as sort of like a more incrementalist position that you would prefer us to advocate for, or I'm just genuinely curious about that?
I think the most reasonable position right now is trans people should probably be allowed to compete in open sports. So right now that's basically with men, and then potentially creating a trans category in the future. I don't think anything else makes sense right now.
You can't.
Do you think that might have limitations in like especially rural areas that have limited like pools for these sports where there might not be enough trans people to sort of actually have their own division?
Possibly, but I mean, women's sports deal with a lot of the same issues sometimes. That's why you have like Title 11 or whatever, or Title 9 or shit.
So basically, you just like don't want trans people to have like matter.
Trans people.
So basically, you just don't want cis women to be competitive. Wait, what?
They don't want.
No, it's not about that. It's about it's that women need a protected place.
You're creating irrelevant league.
GSU, you're all over that shit. Come on. What you guys are saying, you don't want trans people to compete at all.
Nobody has said.
Or you want to ferret them off into their little own hole where they're away from everybody else because you're fucking scared.
What the fuck are you talking about?
That's what you're fucking saying, dude.
No, that's what we're saying. Hold on.
Women, listen, you guys are going to spin it around to all this different shit, but at the end of the day, you don't want them to compete in sports.
Okay, and at the end of the day, you want to destroy women's sports. At the end of the day, you want to destroy women's sports. Okay. Well, look at that. Wow, great arguments. Nice job.
Well,
you're never going to get enough trans people.
There are women that can compete with men, so whatever.
There are not women that
you're the one
men.
infantilizing women thinking they can't compete with men. So
you're just absolutely fucking retarded.
You're right on top of things, Destiny. Just like your shitty-ass fucking community.
He's a very stupid person, and we've had this argument before, which is why I specifically wanted Jason to answer the question. The last time me and Jason had this conversation, what he said was, you just don't understand. The data shows that they're on the same level and there's no advantages. And now that the data is very fucking clear that there are advantages that are maintained even after HRT, Jason, what is your new idiotic point? Why do you feel like
I don't think sports should be gendered at all, GSU.
Bro, go on a fucking airplane and look at like the average woman can't even push her bag into the overhead compartment. Like you want these people competing with. I'm sorry, but like that's just not how the world works. That's not where we're at in reality right now.
Some transphobes tonight. You guys fucking suck.
Okay,
GSU and Destiny, you guys are fucking morons. Good night. That's it for me. I'm done talking to fucking morons.